Commercial-free until then. Meanwhile, let's talk about this man, D-Hop. To no one's surprise, he's just been spectacular this season, leading the league in receiving yards and second most receptions on the year. If his output continues, he can become the first non-rookie since the merger to lead the NFL in receiving in his first season with a new team. And of course, he had maybe the most iconic moment of the year on what is known as the Hail Murray. But yesterday, he was defending himself against criticism that he hasn't practiced enough this year. Here's what he said.
Yeah, man, I heard a lot of negativity about me not practicing when I first came to Arizona. For those people who don't understand football and who just watch, there's a reason that I play football and they watch. Please tell your friends and all you guys on the local station. You know, if you got anything negative to say about DeAndre Hopkins, I charge to come on shows, but I give a discount to come on the show for those people.
Okay. So, I mean, sort of hearkening back to Allen Iverson with practice. Dominique Foxworth, what do you think?
Man, I love DeAndre's attitude in this moment, and he's right. Anyone who's been around football knows that vets, they don't have to practice all the time. And to be honest, I think we make a lot of practice. It's not completely irrelevant, but at the beginning of this season, we were talking about how little practice, how little pregame we all were going to see this year and how it's going to affect the play. And I told everybody, it won't really make a big difference. It'll seem the same, and that's what happened. These guys have been playing football their entire lives. A week or a day of missing practice is not going to suddenly turn them into bad football players. So I respect DeAndre Hopkins, and I hope that he continues to not practice if the results on the field are anything like what they've been for much of this season.
Louis, what do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, you're just fishing for stories and controversy when you bring stuff up like this for guys of his caliber, especially guys who who produce week after week after week. I mean, the best thing you have to do with your time is to pick on the fact and try and pick at the fact that he didn't practice as much as you think he should practice. You think somehow he's missing some kind of critical, situational reps. Is he causing some kind of rift within the organization? I mean, people respect performance. People respect guys who can go out and make unique plays in the NFL, and that's what he can do. And in talking to him before we did their game against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football, this is the kind of guy who, I want him on my football team now. Practice or no practice. And by the way, I don't really care about him practicing. End of story.
Yeah, not a game. We're talking about not the game I died for. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. I'll never forget. I was hosting SportsCenter the day he did that, Allen Iverson. I threw to that. I had to come back and apologize for the language. Okay, next up here, it is time for the Chronicles of Riddick, our favorite feature, if only because it demonstrates him in this spectacular picture. This spectacular picture of Louis Riddick and the Chronicles of Riddick. Oh, we have an open now.
Why can't we change the name?
Okay, the Chronicles
I like
of Riddick.
that right there. I got to get that picture.
And that spectacular picture.
I like that.
So for the Chronicles of Riddick, we go through a couple of different items here. And Louis, let us begin as we look into Week 16 with some things you have some concerns about. And one of them I know, or maybe more than one of them, have to do with the LA Rams.
Yeah, it concerns me a little bit how they're playing right now. And they have two tough division games down the stretch here against Seattle and Arizona. And it's situational football that worries you because I know how much Sean puts an emphasis on that like every coach. And it's third down efficiency on offense and then third down efficiency on defense where they had played lights out all year long. You don't want to start having problems crop up now, especially when you're in the thick of it here and you have to go against two division opponents that you know are going to be gunning for you in their very important games. So just watch those two areas moving down the stretch here. The second one here is the Packers and their ability to slow down Derrick Henry. We talked about it earlier in this show. And this is really what their Achilles heel has been all year long. Or let's just say it's been a question of theirs. Are they tough enough up front on defense that when a team decides to just kind of bloody their nose and say, look, we're going to take the air out of the football and keep Aaron off the football field, can you deal with that? Do you have enough firepower up front and enough bulk up front to deal with that? And then lastly, we've been talking about it all show. We've been talking about it all year. Or rather, I should say over the past couple of weeks, the Steelers and their offense and their ability to be physical up front. I know we talk a lot about whether or not they can run the football, and they can run the football for 4+. That's what keeps offensive coordinators calling running plays. I'm more concerned about the fact of this. If they have to throw the football, because that's really what they do anyway, that's just who they are, and they're not going to get away from it. Can they protect against this Colts defensive line that I've seen them all year long? They have just terrorized quarterbacks. And the Bengals terrorized Ben on Monday night. So this game scares me for him this week. They better find some answers if they can't run the football as far as protecting Big Ben.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. Again, a 3-game losing streak. The one thing we know they will not have this weekend is Juju Smith-Schuster dancing. That seems to be coming to an end. There'll be no more dancing in midfield for the Steelers star wideout, who has received some criticism for dancing at midfield of opposing team stadiums. And the player who's known for his dance moves yesterday talked about his decision to now knock it off.
I was dancing, when we were undefeated, I was dancing. When we lost our 3 games, I'm not going to change the person who I am. I think, it's getting to the point where, my teammates are being asked this question. My coach is being asked this question. I saw it more as, no intention of disrespect.
Let's see how it plays out going forward. Meantime, let's go on the clock. Bunch of other things to get to from around the National Football League. And Dominique Foxworth, you are first up. So the AFC North is very much yet to be decided. So 30 seconds. Who do you believe is going to wind up winning that division?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Steelers. As tough as they've had the last 3 weeks, they'd have to lose 5 in a row to drop this division. That seems so unrealistic for such a well-coached team. I understand that their next 2 games are going to be tough. They have the Colts, and then they have the Browns. But I know the Browns, we feel like they're the new Browns, and it's going to be different. They still have had trouble with those top teams in their division, and I don't suspect that if they really need that win in the final week, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get it from the Steelers. So I think the Steelers hold on.
That would be an unbelievable matchup, by the way, for the final weekend of the season. The Browns get the Jets this weekend, and as you mentioned, the Steelers have a tough game with Indianapolis. If both those games go that way, then that game in Cleveland decides the division. D. Wood, you are next. You were the first one who said on this show that you thought Jalen Hurts would start some games in Philly this year. So right now, what does Carson Wentz's future look like to you? 30 seconds. D. Wood, go.
Yeah, Greeny, I think his future is outside of Philadelphia. When you listen to everything that's going on, Carson Wentz has already made known in various back channels that he doesn't want to be a backup. He doesn't want to be in that position. And I understand the financial ramifications of this, and it makes it hard. But when you hear people talk about Jalen Hurts and the energy and the leadership that he brings to the table, it's going to make it hard for Carson Wentz to be back in that leadership role again for the Eagles.
Whoever would have thought that we'd be talking about this just a few months ago, but that is where we find ourselves. Shefty, next up for you, the Patriots. They have 2 games left and then the rest of their lives to come. What should we expect to be looking at from their quarterback situation going forward? Shefty, go.
Well, they don't have the solution right now, Greeny. Cam Newton has struggled this year, and you could say that that's for a lack of talent that the team has had at the wide receiver position. That has something to do with it, but obviously he has not played well. The team has not played well. It missed out on the playoffs. They're right back to where they were in the offseason, trying to figure out who will be the quarterback of this team long-term. Jarrett Stidham's the only quarterback they have under contract for next year. Clearly, they're going to have to make some decisions going forward.
All right, it's going to be an interesting time of change. Now, I have a few different things I want to get in. Shefty, we will get to this Lions news, but we're going to get there sort of an interesting way. We're going to get there through this pass that Matt Stafford threw last weekend that I feel like did not get nearly enough attention. Feast your eyes on this. This is Matt Stafford looking left, looking right, and then throwing the ball directly down the middle of the field. That is a no-look pass that would have made an NBA point guard jealous, that might just make Patrick Mahomes jealous. It does lead you to one of those who wore it better kind of moments between him and Patrick Mahomes. That is one spectacular play. So it's a great pass. But it brings us to this, Adam Schefter. Yesterday on this program, when we asked the same question that I just asked you about the future at quarterback for New England, Dominique Foxworth brought up the name Matt Stafford, that maybe it's time for a new start in Detroit, and that maybe Stafford would be an option, if he is on the move, for someone like Bill. I just wanted to bounce it off you and see if you thought there could potentially be anything to that as we go forward.
Well, what I would say is this, that the Lions have an opening at GM. They have an opening at head coach. They're going to have to make some big decisions. And so clearly, I think the future of Matthew Stafford there is uncertain. They don't know what they're going to be doing with him because we don't know who's going to be running the team. again, I don't want to make Louis uncomfortable here, but if Louis were the general manager, I would say, Louis, how would you view it? What would you do with Matthew Stafford? Like, I mean, why are you asking me that when you get the guy on the set who would give you for the Lions GM job?
Yeah, I knew where this was heading. I knew where this was going. I'm pretty smart.
That's good foresight.
I
Good
can figure
GM
it out.
characteristics.
Look, Matthew Stafford. That's right. Yeah, it's not that hard. Look, Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback. Matthew Stafford's a real good quarterback. He needs some look, he's got a good left tackle, good offensive center, 2 good running backs. They got some issues at wide receiver as far as unrestricted free agency is concerned. Matthew Stafford should be sitting right where he is. They build around him. Detroit will be just fine.
See,
Does that answer your
there's
question?
your answer. Greeny, you're coming to me, and there's an elephant in the room. We're sitting next to the guy who interviewed for the GM job recently.
Right.
And you're asking me what to do with Matthew Stafford. Why are you asking me that question?
It's a perfect example of me passing the buck. That way, if Louis is upset, he can be upset at you and not at me. It's a brilliant way. That's hosting 101. I just passed the buck to Shefty. All kidding aside, Shefty, there is a story in Detroit today that I just saw you tweeted.
Well, essentially, a short time ago, basically, the Lions ruled out essentially their interim head coach. Robert Prince, the Lions wide receivers coach, is going to be coaching the team Saturday against Tampa Bay. So Robert Prince takes over for Darrell Bevell, who took over for Matt Patricia. And so the Lions are going on their 3rd head coach of the season Saturday against Tampa Bay. It'll be the wide receivers coach, Robert Prince.
To be clear, this is because of COVID reasons. This was not another firing. And for those who are not following it. Yeah, go ahead,
Darrell Bevell was a close contact. He's been living in a hotel room. It was his 28th wedding anniversary this week. He could not be with his wife, with his family on his anniversary. He had to be in a hotel room. And now not only has he been isolated in a hotel room, but now he will not be able to coach his team while he's been given that interim head coaching title. He is out for Saturday's game.
Now, that is terrible that he can't be a close contact of his wife on their 28th wedding anniversary. That just doesn't seem right. Okay, we will continue here in just a moment. Louis, take a